provoked. Their delusion, spite, entitlement, and misogynistic drive for punishment mirror some of the most conservative niches on the internet. Today, we're covering parasocial fandoms, thwarted fairy tales, and woman-hating in the name of morality. They gonna get me. Let's look closer. It's really easy to fall into echo chambers on the internet. The information you find on a snark subreddit, for instance, may be incomplete on purpose, and dedicated fan pages might be uncritical of their favorites, leading to biased reporting. Wouldn't it be nice to gather information in one place and study it side by side like I do in my video essays? That's why there's Ground News, the sponsor of this video. Ground News is a website and app that makes it easier to examine the news. They organize thousands of news articles every day and sorts each of them into stories. Each story features a bias distribution chart to show the publication's political bias, an ownership chart which shows who owns a publication, i.e. the government or a conglomerate. And each story has a cohesive layout, which makes it way easier to compare headlines. Here's a story of your favorite parasocial relationship, Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. In the past few weeks, 21 outlets have wrote about Travis's mom signing an NDA ahead of their wedding. Right below the summary, we can see the bias chart, which shows more right-leaning publications have reported on the story at 23% than left-leaning ones did at 15%. 62% of the coverage is in the center. The differences in headlines and opening sentences are also interesting. Based on their bias reading, we can see how bias influences framing here. TMZ, who leans right, has a bit of a gruff first sentence. Travis Kelce's mom would do anything for her son, except sign an NDA. She Knows, who leans left, has a more poppy tone, but still gossipy, saying that their upcoming nuptials will be the party of the century. Something cool about Ground News is their blind spot feature, which shows which stories are being reported on disproportionately based on political bias. For instance, this story about a negative performance poll of Donald Trump has a majority left and center coverage and 0 right-leaning publications. Collating is my favorite part of research and essay writing, and since you're watching me, I assume it's one of your favorite parts of my videos. So I like what Ground News has to offer, and I think you would too. I think we could all benefit from examining what's being said and how it's being said so that we can better challenge or engage with it. If you subscribe to Ground News today, you'll get 40% off their Vantage plan. Go to ground.news/Shanspeare, click the link in the video description, or scan the
joy, a news app. I'm looking forward to reading the news on the app so much.
/Shanspeare.
Can't wait to spend money on a news app.
Let's get back to the video.
I can't wait to watch the news. I can't wait.
The women our culture has loathed the most have unfailingly been the same ones we can't stop watching. Fandom refers to a subculture of people who enjoy the same thing. Sports, music, or other people.
You
it
mean
can be as
lemmings.
large of a collection as millions or as small a collection as few. They appear to move as one, but they are not a monolith. I accidentally fell into a fandom a few months ago. I was completely uninvited. It's like wearing shoes around someone else's house or joining in on a couple's argument when you have no idea why they're upset. My For You page kept showing me clips from Criminal Minds. You know, the FPI procedural drama that's been airing since fucking 1503 for some reason. And I lingered on these clips because I loved the show in high school. I watched as the content morphed from episode scenes to bloopers of the cast, and then curiously into videos starring Matthew Gray Goobler, the actor who played Spencer on the show. Suddenly, I was on his fandom side of the internet. It was as multifaceted as any other fandom, but I noticed a reoccurring type of video. Matthew's initials would accompany the words "finally single," and a woman would be in the background smiling with satisfaction. Sometimes, the news of his breakup would be so exciting that women would be jumping in the air for joy. This is how I knew I ended up somewhere uninvited, girl, because every post was like trying to decipher code. I just kept thinking,
man, what did he do to make them this that mad?
TikTok comments led me to Reddit, and Reddit led me down a fandom rabbit hole. Spread across a handful of different forums, hundreds of people were dissecting Matthew's alleged girlfriend at the time, up-and-coming country singer Willow Avalon. Before this, I didn't know who Willow Avalon was. During and after this, I'm still not a fan. It seems like a lot of other people aren't either, but their reasons are far more complex than mine are. In late March of 2025, Willow and Matthew were spotted by DeuxMoi, the media entity that's part independent journalism, part community-run stalking ring. Dumois posted a dark, scary image of the couple, taken in secret by a third party, and wrote, Matthew Grey Gubler and Willow Avalon's Carbone date night confirms romance. This confirmation will certainly delight fans who have been eagerly following the rumors. Yeah, delight. Well, you can add taking the piss to their resume because... Let me break down the responses to these dating rumors, but first I have to explain Reddit to you like you're 5. I looked at 3 different kinds of subreddits for this video. General pages, dedicated pages, and snark pages. General pages are for casual pop culture audiences. The focal point isn't just one celebrity, but many. The participants of this space can be snarky, which means critical with the intent to inflict pain or shame. But they're usually tame, and their opinion doesn't seem tied up in any passionate parasocial connection. Dedicated pages are those that focus on one celebrity, for instance, Doechii or Ariana Grande. This is where self-proclaimed fans congregate, people who may like the celebrity and who are looking to discuss their work or personal life. Sometimes negative opinions, measured criticism, or outright snarky posts appear here, but not without pushback from other fans. People who want to release their inhibitions and feel the pain on their skin go to snark subreddits, or maybe even candor subreddits, though these are not usually as abrasive. The Willow Avalon snark page that I scrolled through wasn't active until months after the relationship reveal, so most of the early responses come from general pages or dedicated pages. Some fans were normal in their gossip, while others quickly resorted to misogynistic instinct, an element that even the most hardened haters of Willow have admitted. A majority of people were initially concerned about the age gap. That March, Willow was 26 and Matthew had just turned 45, and like some of his Hollywood brethren, it wasn't the first time he had gone for someone almost half his age. Some of his fans were critical of him, even so far as calling him a weird, dirty old man, but they evened it out by affirming their love for him and his 75-year-long running television series. We're gonna come back to holding people accountable in a bit, so stick a pin in this part. It became quickly apparent that Willow Avalon wasn't going to make it through her relationship with a famous celebrity unscathed. It's a tale as old and as simultaneously disputed as time itself. A celebrity, usually a white man, starts dating a woman and fans descend like buzzards to the kill. Not all fans, I know. This doesn't have batteries, so... I'm not trying to paint fandoms, especially those with large portions of women and girls, as hysterical or boy crazy, because they're not. But there is a consistent pattern of parasocial abuse that we just have to be honest about. Girl, please. Even before Matthew and Willow were confirmed to be dating, some of his fans were brutal towards her. One Redditor asked, why is no one talking about the fact that Willow comes from a website called Seeking Arrangements, where she would look for rich older men? She was an escort. She sold prescription drugs to a dealer and posed nude. This is the person you hope he's oh so happy with. My favorite part about this comment is that it's pretending to be cool and casual in its concern, but
who cares
it's
if she does any of that
on its own misogyny. Guys,
seek the path of the
she was a sex worker, and everyone knows that when you're a woman who engages in sex work or take nude photographs,
You should be banished to the bottom of a well for all eternity where no one can ever love you.
the posed nude thing, I think, references nude photographs of Willow that were being circulated around the time that her relationship with Matthew went public, which is actually a really common tactic used by misogynists. Now, I don't know who first posted them. I don't know if they were posted by a fan or a snarker or a random person who was being weird, but they did post them multiple times and would even tag Matthew and his family members in them on Instagram. All I know is that snark redditors claim it wasn't them and adamantly condemn the circulation of revenge nudes in their rules section. But going back to this comment, it positions her as someone unlovable, or at the very least, problematic to love because of her past. This will become a common theme not only with Willow, but with any woman who dares to be highly visible and in love. The rich older man comment is subtle but strategic. Not only does it imply that Willow is taking advantage of Matthew, a quote-unquote rich older man, like she did with the men on Seeking Arrangements, but it also references an age-old misogynistic belief that women use men for money and attention. Sophie Gilbert's book Girl on Girl, no, not the good kind, documents the ways in which pop culture became a powder keg of misogyny in the 2000s. Woman hating was as casual as breathing. It invaded our music, television, films, and discourse. This culture of misogyny influenced how we saw women, and it also trained us how to treat them. One of the book's chapters, Girl Fight, focuses on reality TV. These shows often feature groups of women being herded like cattle through obscene and dehumanizing competitions.
The behavior that you exhibited was whore-like. The whore jumped out, and then it jumped back in.
Also, they can win the love of one man, or rather, win one man's pockets. The women in these shows are characterized as shallow, vindictive, violent gold diggers who will stop at nothing to be seen. Like a mythical witch, these women maintain their vitality by sucking the earth dry of money and attention. They can't function without it. They need it like air. Both the camera and audience conspire to punish them for it. The most common snarks I see about women in high-profile relationships is that they are attention seekers. When FKA Twigs mentioned that she was being racially targeted on Twitter in late 2014, the same month that her relationship with Robert Pattinson went public, by the way, fans of Robert called her a trashy fame whore who wants Rob's money. This was on top of the tweets calling her a no-good black slave, a housekeeper, a monkey, and an infection. Mind you, it would have taken me till just now, in the middle of this video, 2026, to get off those people. Okay, I would have been putting belt to asses for 12 years straight. That is if I didn't believe in restorative justice, of course. Some people make it real hard though, my God. Anyway, in 2023, after Timothée Chalamet started dating Kylie Jenner, his fans, I'll just let you hear it. For me, it's the fact that he seemingly was an actor for the love of the craft, had integrity for the roles he chose, and was cerebral and cool. So it makes no sense that he'd date someone trashy, shallow, and fame-hungry. On the dedicated MGG subreddit, one user argued that Willow couldn't function without the attention she got from Matthew fans. Another Redditor argued that she's a girl who desperately wants to be noticed and admired. She crams her face in every possible angle with him. We as fans are astonished how MGG can't see through her trying to get attention. On the other hand, good on him getting the younger girls. Wait, what? This post reads, "Imagine being so obsessed with male attention that you post a picture with your bra sticking out." Another user replied, "I always say this and I'm treated like a misogynist, but honestly, anyone who posts a photo like that has to be desperate to get attention." Y'all would hate to see me because this girl bra not even showing this picture. This rhetoric keeps going and going and going. Funnily enough, this is a popular talking point in the manosphere. The manosphere is a misogynistic and white supremacist community that recruits men into violence. Among other things, they believe that women and men are in an intimate power play for domination. Women only want money and attention, and men only want sex. Across the fandom spaces I searched, one coping mechanism of scorned fans is to declare that their favorite man celebrity isn't actually in love with his trashy partner. He just wants to use her body. Phew, what a relief. Like, what? Both the manosphere and fandoms ask, how can we be mad about misogynistic objectification when it's really women who hold the power? They are the gatekeepers of sex and desire, and they wield it to gain capital. All these innocent men are just doing what they have to do to get by. A woman's sexual power is simultaneously weak enough to be weaponized against her and potent enough to ruin a grown man's life. One Redditor proclaimed that as a 17-year-old minor, Willow Avalon, quote, duped a 33-year-old man with her wiles, end quote, and effectively ruined that Redditor's relationship with him. Willow is alleged to have lied about her age, but further in the post, the Redditor insists that her 33-year-old partner knew Willow was a child when he slept with her. Quote, "She fucking uses people, especially men, and she discards them with zero regard for the damage she leaves in her wake." Other posts across Reddit imply that Willow is so powerful that she's sucking the life force out of Matthew Gray Gubler and making him look tired and run down. One fan lamented, "But if we say that out loud, people will call us psychos." The Timothée Chalamet subreddit features similar discourse. Girl, people are in there calling Kylie Jenner a succubus. And it's just as strange on the K-pop side of things. After aespa's Winter was rumored to be dating Jungkook from BTS, some fans began flooding her comments with demands for her to apologize for hurting him and to free him, as if he's an unwilling captive taken during the War of Seduction or something. That man is older than I am. And according to the internet, I'm already unk. While I was researching this video, I kept coming back to one question. Why do some fans engage in this behavior, and how does their parasociality lead to or justify their misogyny? Parasociality breeds dehumanization, which in turn can breed discrimination. You'll never know the intimate details of a celebrity's thoughts, feelings, or relationship, and this produces a gap in their identity. You claim to love and respect this person. They can't be incomplete, so you project onto them. You fill in those gaps. You transform them from a person into a myth. Now you're in a dream world of your own creation. You can make things up as you see fit, which some fans do often and well. Like, what are we even talking about, bro? Like, Shanann Palma puts forward an interesting phenomenon called fairy tale logic. It refers to the mode of magical thinking typified by the belief that certain functions, fulfilled correctly and in the right order, lead to predictable outcomes. Anyone can believe in fairy tale logic. It appears everywhere in our pop culture. Palma specifically uses it in reference to incels. Incels are a subcommunity in the manosphere defined by their lack of intimate relationships. They believe that becoming alphas will fix their loneliness, since, to them, women are biologically wired to seek out alpha men. This is their fairy tale logic. By following certain gender scripts, like gaining muscle, charm, or wealth, they think that they will reap sexual reward. Fairy tale logic also occurs in general fandom, just in a different way. There are some fans who are extremely parasocial, but I think for the most part, they understand that there's nothing they can do to win the love of their favorite celebrity. Their happy ending is not sex like the incel, and their hero's journey is not going to the gym or winning $1 million. Though, god damn, $1 million does sound good. That would be nice. They probably don't even believe that harassing their beloved's partner will grant them a happy ending. I think some parasocial fans are merely frustrated. Not because they think they have a chance at dating a celebrity, though some certainly do, but because that celebrity and that celebrity's partner disrupts the fantasy. When Robert Pattinson started dating FKA Twigs, his fans weren't mad because they desire him or because they're racist, though those are in contention. Some of them were mad because this new relationship trampled on their fantasy pairing of him and Kristen Stewart. That relationship had just ended a year prior to his relationship with Twigs, and it effectively sealed the casket of the Twilight era. Celebrities and other highly visible beings aren't people so much as they are characters in a movie. Parasocial fans seek solace in comfortable tropes. There's a hero, a villain, and a moral. They'll never admit it, but they expect their actors to follow the script. Celebrities and those around them must behave a certain way, date certain people, or no one at all. But like the plight of the incel, parasocial fans are crushed when they learn that other people have autonomy. Just because you have a script for them laid out in your head doesn't mean they have to follow it. When a highly visible puppet disrupts the fantasy, it breaks the spell. The only way to continue the script is to expose and punish the villain, which is usually a woman. Ricardo Lopez and Robert Bardo followed this logic. Their fairy tale archetypes started out traditional. They were the heroes, and their parasocial objects were the damsels.
Look at this beautiful face. This cute, innocent, sweet, shy thing.
Infantilization is integral to parasociality as part of its aim to dehumanize. Gender and race can play a big role. Before Robert Bardo became violent in his obsession with Rebecca Schaefer, he described her as a goddess, too sweet, clean, and pure for sexual fantasies. Ricardo Lopez did something similar with Bjork. In his journal, he wrote, "I couldn't have sex with her because I love her." Neither man could comprehend how a good, mythical woman could also be spoiled or self-determining. They attempted to infantilize both women in order to bring reality in congruence with their mind. And when the women went off script, they decided to punish them for it. I noticed that with K-pop, or let me speak on BTS since that's mainly who I follow. I noticed that with BTS, some fans can be infantilizing to an extreme. Some fans are adamant that none of the 30 to 40-year-old men they're dating have ever dated or even want to date.
Do you wear wigs? Have you worn wigs? When will you wear wigs?
They don't know what sex is. And any woman who gets
Wait. I'm sorry, Kitty. I didn't mean to bump you.
dated or even want to date.
Do you wear wigs? Have you worn wigs? When will you wear wigs?
This laugh is classic.
They don't know
I
what
thought it was hilarious. Do you wear wigs?
sex is. And any woman who gets close to them is an evil seductress looking to seduce a poor, innocent child. Not all fans, I know. Damn. You're gonna make me keep pulling this out? In response to the Winter Junket rumors, one user commented, JK belongs only to his army. Another said, you always say that army is all you care about, that we're the most important thing to you. You clearly stated before that you didn't have a girlfriend and didn't want to be in a relationship, but now I really don't understand. I feel deceived. The fairy tale these fans built, sometimes even with the help of their beloved, began to burn before their eyes. This is what I think happened with Timothée Chalamet. For the longest time, his pop culture image was that of a young, cool savant, burdened with generational talent. He probably drinks oat milk and carries around a tote bag full of Criterion Vault selections. But he burst the parasocial fantasy when he began dating Kylie Jenner. He went off script. Some of his fans resent her because, in part, she doesn't match the sexual politics he exudes. He should be with someone of his caliber, someone mystic and artsy, like Taylor Russell, but I'm not sure if they even liked her when... So, instead, he chose someone who's perceived differently. Disappointed. Yuck. Yuck. Tim has talent, outstanding parents, and he worked hard to get where he is today. He's multilingual and educated and has now thrown his reputation away to be with Kylie? Shit, shallow name, adept from a shallow dickhead bimbo who had babies with a rapper narcissistic wanker. I feel like vomiting. Part 2. Snark cells and accountability. The popular understanding of celebrity has rotated through cycles of idolization, jealousy, curiosity, and resentment. Disgust seemed to be the inevitable final phase, an appropriate response to women who had supposedly courted attention throughout their careers, only to turn around now and complain about being victimized. Disgust made it easier to hate them. The so-called bullying is just people trying to make her hold accountability for her disgusting mess of a past. And if she had at least a little moral backbone and a drop of empathy, she would have addressed it right away. Can I tell you a secret? I hate seeing the word accountability used on the internet because most people don't actually know what it means. It's gone the way of woke and feminism. The actual practice and culture surrounding these terms have become a spectacle on the internet, perverted by people who want to use it for their own violence. Like when conservatives redefine woke as a bad thing, and trad wives scream choice feminism in people's faces who challenge them about their far-right ideology. Some people say accountable when they really just mean shame. You want to harass someone, isolate them, abuse them, and still keep your high ground and call it justice. As much as some people have perverted the term, I think it can still be used as a valid tool for transformation, challenging harm in interpersonal relationships, targeting companies and politicians who do harm to those they serve, because these people work for us, mind you. These are all good things. Accountability means being responsible for your actions, and sometimes, especially when it comes to those who have an overabundance of power, they must be made aware of the harm they have caused, or at the very least, be made aware of the consequences they'll face. Misogyny is not a consequence. It's a punishment. It seeks to solve nothing but how to create more pain. I accidentally made my job a little harder by choosing to highlight certain celebrities like Willow Avalon and Kylie Jenner. These women are not perfect victims of harassment. In fact, they have both caused harm, interpersonally and broadly. But I think this makes a good exercise in favoring justice over wrath. Willow seemed eager to work with Zach Bryan after allegations arose of him emotionally abusing his ex-girlfriend. When asked about how she feels on the matter, she stated, "Go outside and touch grass. He's only ever been kind." There's also a photo of her as a teenager wearing the Confederate flag. I've lived in the South, so all my life I have been jump scared constantly with this damn thing. You don't know fear until you are a young black femme driving by yourself right before nightfall, and the GPS takes you the wrong way down a dead-end dirt road, and every house you pass has a Confederate flag in the window. Girl, I was scared. I was scared as fuck that day. Kylie Jenner also has a well-documented history of cultural appropriation and other oddities surrounding race, including that damn fried chicken photo shoot on the private fucking jet. Oh my god. Oh my god.
Oh my god.
Oh no. She allegedly exploits workers overseas to produce her products and has a general billionaireness about her that makes me a little hungry. Both women have done tangible things that uphold, or at the very least, comply with systems of harm, including misogyny, gendered violence, capitalistic abuse, and institutional racism. They should take responsibility for these actions and change them moving forward. My question is, what does that look like on the spectacle of the internet? And how can the internet demand it in a way that's restorative rather than carceral? About 6 years ago, I became curious about abolition. It started with the police, moved to the death penalty, and now encompasses the prison industrial complex as a whole, from immigration detention centers to occupation to interpersonal relationships. I am the biggest killjoy it is when it comes to pop culture because I apply these themes where people don't think they fit. Last May, I published a video essay about misogyny and pop culture titled, Just Say You Hate Women. The goal of that essay was to challenge casual violence against highly visible women, whether they're a celebrity or someone getting their 15 minutes of shame. I argue that pop culture is a kind of prison, and we are both its guards and executioners. I'll try to keep it short for this video, but what the internet demands of people who cause harm is not always accountability. Sometimes it's abuse and harassment. Accountability, first and foremost, is community-based, meaning the person who is harmed is centered, and there are no outside jury members, just people in the community who personally know both parties. It rejects the violence of our prison system by avoiding shame tactics, harassment, isolation, and abuse. It understands that penal-based punishment seeks to inflict pain and only creates cycle of harm. Under true accountability, people who cause harm maintain their humanity and dignity, but face consequences for their actions. They may have to be separated from those they have harmed, apologize for the harm they've caused, and enter a long-term restorative process that includes education and behavior transformation.
It'd be nice to spend a point.
The person who has been harmed is centered in the discussion. Sometimes they are even in charge of deciding the consequences. Accountability has to be voluntary, not coerced. This is obviously hard work. It's easier said than done, and it plays out even trickier on the internet. When I talk about people on my channel, for instance, like Matt Rife or Larry's, I rarely focus on them as individuals. I go out of my way to blur the name of non-celebrities because I value tools over targets. By focusing on the broad issue, like Matt Rife's misogynistic behavior, I give people tools to apply it to other situations in life. That way we don't think of it as a Matt Rife problem, but a problem of our culture. I'm not perfect at this. Sometimes I get a little... just take someone's head and just... But anyways, maybe I won't change Matt Rife's mind, but I'll change thousands of other minds who thought just like me. The bulk of what I found on Reddit and TikTok about highly visible women is not accountability. It's retribution. Not only that, it's a form of punishment that is inconsistent with the harm
27.
caused. For instance, Willow Avalon
Hardcore
caused
levels
harm
always
by
feel
working
really good.
with, praising, and defending Zach Bryant after he was accused of abuse. Snarkers claim to pursue accountability from her by inflicting pain. Snarking, by definition, is pain-inducing. They snark on her body and personality and singing voice and talent. They call her a gold digger and an attention whore. How does that mitigate or transform the harm she caused? And the Confederate flag thing. I personally hesitate around people who rep it. I know some are willing to change their mind through education, but I can admit that I would not initially feel safe around someone repping that flag. I also wouldn't feel safe around people who use that to be misogynistic on anonymous internet forums, because both instances have the potential to harm me. Because the way I see it, you think that being misogynistic is okay so long as someone did something wrong first. What if I do something wrong? Can you be misogynistic towards me? I don't always see measured contentions with wrongdoing in this space. I see screenshots of women's faces and body made to paint them as unattractive, coupled with comments about how ugly they are, or how plastic they are, or how plastic even that they need to be to gain love. I see photos and tweets comparing women to monkeys, and people exclaiming how disgusting these women are. I see comments calling women Oompa Loompa botched body bitches and slutty porn stars. I see entitled demands for explanations or apologies for things that are none of our parasocial business. When you bring this up to participants in these dog pals, they ask you, well, why are you defending a horrible person? Or why can't she just take accountability? You guys would be really good cops. You would be really good agents of the state. Don't take that as a compliment. This behavior is yet another thing that fandoms have in common with the alt-right. I'm not saying that a random Harry Styles fan is comparable to Andrew Tate. Instead, I think fans are like anyone else on the planet. They're not immune to propaganda. Everyone is being influenced by the same power source.
You boys twins? Nah, we cousins.
In August of 2014, Aaron Joni published the Zoe post. It was an intimate and later debunked recounting of his breakup with independent game developer Zoe Quinn. In it, Joni implied that Zoe cheated on him with a game reviewer named Nathan Grayson, presumably in exchange for a positive review of their game Depression Quest. Zoe had already been the subject of harassment by men in the gaming community who argued their existence in the space was essentially woke feminist DEI nonsense. By publishing this post, Joni unleashed a flood. Gamergate was born. Gamergate was a mass harassment campaign directed at every woman who breathed on the internet, and it used a lot of the same tactics that fandoms use. Laura Bates, author of Men Who Hate Women, argues that Gamergate was sustained and strengthened by the process of documenting and sharing the harassment on anonymous forums, collecting accolades and advice from other trolls, and competing to outdo one another in the extremity and obscenity of the abuse. It's straight from the misogyny slob playbook, as coined by the creator Ofidoki. Fans on Reddit revel in anonymity. Some even make throwaway accounts to participate in abuse without linking it back to themselves. Documentation is key to their practice, especially since their comments don't just exist on the forum. They take it directly to their target and their target's friends and family. The new rules for the Willow Avalon Snark subreddit states, mostly everyone in Willow Circle is equally problematic. Feel free to share anything about them. Users post screenshots to prove they've been blocked by their targets for the harassment. They tag the target's friends and family in call-out posts. They leave snarky comments under their target's social media and come back to base with updates. One MGG fan posted on Reddit sounding excited. I made a new account and she already blocked me. The biggest similarity between alt-right practices and general fandom is what I call rage justification. In order to skirt responsibility for their actions, harassers will obfuscate their abuse as a moral endeavor. They'll claim that they're only trying to hold someone accountable or warn others about their wrongdoing. Gamergate excelled at this. They
was really
argued
just
that
playing God, trying
their
to shame
intentions
somebody.
weren't to be misogynistic or violent. They didn't mean to dox all those addresses and make women flee their home under threat of murder and assault. They were just concerned about corruption in the gaming community, and they wanted Zoe Quinn and other women to take accountability. As Laura Bates argues, however, when you analyze the content of Gamergate posts, you find that participants resort to abuse faster than they do justice. If gamers truly cared about corruption, then Nathan Grayson, the man accused of dating Zoe Quinn for favorable reviews, which was debunked, of course, he would have received just as much criticism as Zoe Quinn or Anita Sarkeesian, who was another woman attacked in the campaign. But Nathan only received 700 tweets during the height of Gamergate. Zoe received over 10,000 and Anita received over 35,000. A similar disparity happens in fandom. Men are not held to the same standards of criticism as women are. Matthew Gray Gubler, for instance, has done numerous things that mirror Willow Avalon's behavior. He kissed a 16-year-old when he was in his mid-20s for a photo shoot, and his fans simply say, well, the girl clearly didn't mind it, and 16 is the age of consent. But when Willow Avalon reposted a photo of a teenage fan wearing Willow's biggest gooner on their t-shirt, and she rightfully took it down afterwards, snarkers began calling her a groomer. Willow was wrong to work with someone accused of abuse, and even wronger to defend that person using abuse deflection tactics. Matthew Gray Gubler was also wrong to work with and lend credence to someone accused of abusing women in the industry for years. Snarkers say, well, his thing happened 16 years ago, and he cut ties with him as soon as he found out. How do you know he found out at that point? But also, the man of the hour, Terry Richardson, has been credibly accused of assault since 2001, including a lawsuit in 2005. High-profile accusations made the round again in 2010, with reporters noting at the time that his violent conduct was an open secret in the industry. And yet, in 2012, Matthew said he admired Terry and that his art has a childlike genuineness that's contradictory to how he's perceived. Oh, and here's them together in 2014, 1 month after a new wave of allegations came out about Terry. And what do we make of Matthew Gray Gubler dancing the crowd to Zach Bryant? Here's one fan's thoughts. Disappointing to see how he's willing to support such a horrible person just because of who he's dating. This makes me dislike Willow even more. I can't make this shit up, people. Like, why can't both people be criticized? Why is only one of them, the woman, called a petulant, pathetic, attention-seeking manipulator, while the man is handled with kitty gloves by some of his fans? Emphasis on some of his fans. I'm not saying get the pitchforks out for Spencer Reed, I'm just saying, at the very least, be honest in your motives. Then we can get to our destination quicker, and I don't have to make an hour-long video about this. A man can survive a fairy tale meltdown relatively unscathed, so long as he successfully maintains the fantasy in other ways. Matthew Gray Gubler isn't on social media much. He is very friendly with his fans. His relationships are relatively private. Fans can still project cleanly onto him and nurture their parasocial bond. The same can't be said for Timothée Chalamet, whose cocky rants, public dates with Kylie, and refusal to play his part has led to a mass exodus of even his most dedicated fans. The mask fell off completely, one wrote. I can't even look at him on screen. He disgusts me so much.
Oh.
The conclusion. Damn, they not gonna like this one, ain't it? Researching this was rage-inducing. Even long after I closed my laptop, I would sit there with my anger, not knowing where to put it. Over time, it would cool off into pessimism. Laura Bates wrote a chapter on trolling for her book about woman-hating. Trolls are usually men, but anyone can partake in it, regardless of gender, race, or class. I was surprised to find multiple snark accounts ran by people who had just started families, who wake up every morning to go to work or hang out with friends. I guess it stuck with me because of something Robert Pattinson once said about them, in which I readily believed, that trolls are inconsequential, that they are basement dwellers trying to wreak as much havoc as possible. But that's not true, is it? The same people who were calling FKA Twigs a slave monkey are the same people who you live next to. They're our friends, our family members, our teachers. They're members of society who wake up every morning and go out into the world and be. Their lives are relatively normal, grounded in reality, and then they come home, boot up their computer or open the Reddit app on their phone, and they think they're blowing off steam by participating in the violent fantasy world of parasocial trolling. Troll makes them seem cute and sweet. Sure, not all of them are murderers, and for the most part, they're not wishing death on anyone. But they're not harmless. Most people wave it away because the most visible instances of it are happening to uber wealthy women and C-list celebrities. What I want to get through everyone's head, and what I talked about at length in Just Say You Hate Women, is that this can happen to anyone who stumbles into the 15-minute spotlight shame. Trolls claim that women are lying about the abuse and harassment they receive, and if they are being punished, then it's for good reason. And if you think something's wrong with that, then you're just an undercover fan defending a bad, nasty woman. The goalpost is constantly shifting. Trolls love to claim freedom of speech. The first rule of Snark is that it's my God-given right to be terrible to people I don't know. What's it to you, fascist? Online harassers seem to confuse freedom of speech with the right to be heard, to have an audience, never to face or debate disagreement, and not to be called a violent, misogynistic, racist bigot. Not around here, partner. I'm gonna challenge you every chance I get.
Forgot. I don't know what it. Damn, I'm already three bars in. What the hell's going on? You fell, kitty. Are you okay? Yeah, don't fall.
What is going on with the Quinfall? Is this shit actually good now? From averaging around 500 or so peak concurrent players on Steam, Quinfall is now averaging over 6,000, peaking at 7, and more impressively, it's actually growing for almost a couple of weeks now. So again, what is going on with the Quinfall? Well, on February 6th, Quinfall ended its early access pre-launch and officially launched with its 1.0 version, which included a lot of updates and supposed improvements to the game. Even though this game was one of the worst MMOs I had played back in the day, I had to check it out. I had to check out the official 1.0 launch to see if this game had actually improved any, and I gotta admit, it has improved. I gotta give them some credit here. So, how good is this game now? What can you expect? Best way I can describe the Quinfall right now is that it's a Temu BDO New World and Ashes of Creation mixed into one. Some people will scoff at the notion that it's a Temu or budget version of those games, but there are a lot of people that really like those games that will be drawn to the Quinfall because of this. Despite the improvements, judging this game at face value, the defaulty assets are still holding the game back, but the big one for me is the lack of polish, mainly from its audio and combat. Literally every interaction before was met with some kind of negative experience. This has really improved a lot, but there are still certain areas of the game that severely lack polish that will lose a lot of players, and until they can improve in these areas,
I want to see it in 5
the game
years.
will continue to feel like it's a scuffed indie MMO for a lot of people. The audio, for example, is as bad as it gets. It quite literally sounds like MIDI files a high schooler would use for a school project.
Yeah. But, I mean, that's just money. It's his money.
I would argue that playing Quinfall on mute actually enhances your experience. That's what I did. I'm not even kidding here. The scuffed audio also affects the combat experience because the combat in Quinfall is severely held back by its lack of impact. The sound effects make it laughable, but even despite the sounds, the combat
isn't
just
that
feels
bad.
extremely floaty. Slicing through paper feels more impactful than landing hits in Quinfall.
Oh, I finished.
Animations aren't too bad, but they need to touch up on the effects, completely redo the sound, and revisit collision and hit animations. This should 100% be priority number one above anything else, because all of the other unpolished areas of the game are much more forgivable. Why then are there so many people playing it? That reason, in my opinion, is that if you like BDO, Black Desert Online, New World, or Ashes of Creation, this is a flavor of ice cream that you may really enjoy from a gameplay or game design perspective. It's just being held back by the quality of the ice cream. if that analogy made sense. The game actually offers a lot of good and interesting content design-wise. In my opinion, Quinfall loses most of its new players within the first few hours of the game from the lack of polish and scuffiness. The people that are less sensitive to these things and can push past this are much more likely to get hooked on the game due to the content that Quinfall offers, which is its strongest point. A really large open world that feels like an MMO world, social focused content, GVG content, dungeon content, naval content, trade pack or caravan content, instanced and open world PvP content, life skilling or gathering, crafting, housing, even open world housing for both personal and guild houses in PvE and PvP zones. Think Rust. I mean, the list just goes on. Like I said, BDO, New World, and Ashes put together. I guess we can also throw Rust in there as well. As I was playing the game, trying to give it a fair shake, I was really starting to enjoy it the more I played it, constantly catching myself thinking, damn, I wish they could fix up the audio in combat. This game could be kind of fire. It was pretty split in my chat as well. There were some that just couldn't get over the lack of polish and quit early, and some that were saying they were
but I still think it's a good game.
Getting hooked on the game, saying it was actually kind of fun. Now that's just me judging the game at face value, disregarding all the noise, because there is a lot of noise that's both positive and negative surrounding this game. I don't really care to get into any of those details because I want this video to focus on the actual game itself. But here's a TLDR of what I've heard from both sides. The negative side saying things along the lines of the game being a scam, uses copied assets, being an AI game, made some questionable decisions that were backtracked with refunds. Positive side saying this was all from a solo developer for a while and now having still under 10 developers or so, a dev team that listens to feedback, GMs who are active in-game and actively banning cheaters, the time frame of the game being only around 5 years or so. Now, I don't know what is true or what is not true in regards to these. To be honest, I don't really care enough to look into it. I'm only really concerned with how good the game is now, and right now, the game is definitely not up to the level of a modern-day AAA MMO. But I'm looking forward to seeing where it can go because the game has come a long way in the year that I've covered it. I did have one interaction with the senior dev and founder who came to my stream that I think might be worth sharing with you guys. Here it is. I gotta say, I do have a bit more respect for this project after hearing it was developed by one person, and considering this and its development time, yeah, this is miles ahead of Ashes, at least. After reading this message in chat, I followed up by giving him feedback on the game, and I went pretty hard on saying that it's simply not good enough for a 1.0 launch. The sounds are awful, combat feels floaty. Of course, I acknowledged improvements that were made, but I was very direct about the shortcomings of the game, to which he responded, "Thank you very much. Improvements will certainly continue. The release of the full version will not stop our improvements. I'm taking note of all of these, and I believe that with your support and interest in Quinfall, we will reach much better places. I wish you good broadcasts." A very respectable response, I would say. To conclude things, I really feel they missed the mark with the latest build being labeled as the official 1.0 launch. I get they were probably trying to take advantage of the Ashes implosion, but this game could have definitely had a much bigger bang if it were polished up more. My final thoughts and opinion: if Quinfall revamps their sounds and can make their combat feel more impactful, I could see myself sinking a lot of hours into this game, maybe even playing it as a base game for a while. But these two areas are so far off the mark right now. Despite the improvements Quinfall made, it still feels like a relatively scuffed game because of it. This game has come a long way though, and I will say that this game has gone from being one of the worst MMOs I had ever played to now being an MMO with potential that I've got my eyes on. Revamp the audio, make the combat feel impactful, and get more original assets. Do this, and the Quinfall could start to pop off even more. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.
hopefully I'll be able to buy food with the money I got from killing all these things. I'm up in silver, 77. That's like 30 more than I started. I guess he saw me. Yeah, he turned to saw me. Scary. I love Rogue in this era. I think it's so fun. I used to play it too. I used to play Rogue in there. A friend of mine loaned me his Rogue. So I fought my way out, but I didn't find the oil that I'm supposed to look for. Where's song oil? You are too close. The sound is too close. Oh.
Space dudes, welcome back. It's Virtual Nomad, and I came across this Reddit post asking about what makes Starfield special. And while some gamers may have gave up on the game after 10 hours, there are many other gamers who have over 1,000 hours and counting, meaning clearly there has to be appeal in the game for these gamers. I then decided to give the post a week for the discussion to marinate so more people would comment under it, and then used AI to generalize the top 3 reasons on why Starfield is special according to other people's opinion. And quite honestly, I agree with them. The number 1 goated feature will shock you, but not surprise you when you think about it. You'll get what I mean when we get there. Coming in at number 3, around 12% of people's replies were atmosphere, visuals, and tone. And I have to agree with this notion. To be frank, I'd be willing to debate that it could be the number 1 reason. Here's why. I did this fun thing of zooming in on the graphic detailing of the game and pay attention to how sharp it looks and tell me you're not impressed. The stitching, texture on clothing, and spacesuits is quite honestly second to none compared to any game released in the past 5 years. Even the women in the game are hot. Don't tell me you wouldn't smash any of them. Middle school me would probably goon off to some of them. I know this because even the quote-unquote dancers and nightwalkers in GTA were enough for me to get back then, you know? Those NPCs were basically 8-bit compared to what we have.
Your level of conversation is so dumb.
Ask an average gamer about the state of space sims today, and you'll probably hear the story of two extremes. On one side, you have a pastel-colored survival loop of No Man's Sky, where the physics feel pulled from 1970s sci-fi paperback rather than from actual astrophysics. And on the other side, there is Star Citizen. It's a monolithic, crowd-funded cathedral offering extreme fidelity, yet for over a decade it has maintained exactly that. A promise locked behind the closed servers and the perpetual development. Quietly though, there is a massive shift happening outside of the main spotlight. The Elite Dangerous that you remember from 2014 is dead. The version that broke its own community with a disastrous Odyssey expansion in 2021 has been completely dismantled. For 12 years, this was the quintessential cockpit simulator, and it was lonely, isolated experience famously branded by critics as a mile wide and an inch deep. You were a pilot glued to the chair, staring into a abyss that offered stunning vistas but zero tangible agency. And that is no longer the case. Over the last 2 years, culminating with the Trailblazers and the operations updates in 2025 and 2026, Elite Dangerous fundamentally mutated. It shifted genres entirely to become an uncompromising simulation of the galactic colonization. To understand how Frontier Development pulled off the greatest mechanical resurrection in modern gaming, we first have to understand the sheer scale of their original sin. And to do that, we need to understand the foundation. And to understand it, we need to take a look at the Stellar Forge. When Frontier Development set out to modernize their 1984 classic, they didn't want to build a simple sandbox. They wanted to simulate entire galaxy. Unlike competitors with handcrafted skyboxes or dramatically condensed solar systems, the Stellar Forge simulates the Milky Way from the first principles. Strict Keplerian orbital mechanics govern all 400 billion star systems. A planet's atmospheric composition isn't painted by an artist, it's procedurally dictated by the rock's proximity to the host star and the star's metallicity. This 1-to-1 scale made distances agonizingly real. Flying to a secondary star in an Alpha Centauri system like from Hutton Orbital took over an hour of a real-world time in a supercruise. The flight model itself was a fly-by-wire masterpiece that managed thruster output to simulate atmospheric dogfighting in a total vacuum. It felt heavy and real, but the realism came at the high cost. The game felt hollow. Landing on a 1-to-1 scale airless planet during the Horizons expansion was a staggering technological achievement. You seamlessly transitioned from orbital cruise to a fiery glide, ending with a rover drive across the dirt. Yet there was almost nothing to do once you arrived. You shot at rocks and collected raw materials. You were a tourist in a highly accurate simulated museum. When Frontier introduced the engineers to add depth through the ship upgrades, it relied on an agonizing random number generation system. You can grind it dozens of hours, gathering rare materials only to roll the modification that actually made your hyperdrive worse. The community was trapped in a beautiful, scientifically accurate purgatory. The universe had incredible breadth, but gameplay was extremely shallow. The desperation to fix this core issue led to the darkest chapter of the game's history. In May 2021, Frontier launched an Odyssey expansion. This was supposed to be the game's Neil Armstrong moment, letting players unbuckle their pilot seats and walk on the planetary surfaces. Instead, it nearly killed the franchise. Odyssey launched in a state of technical catastrophe. The new rendering engine, desperately trying to simulate atmospheric gliding, brought the flagship graphics cards to their knees. In on-foot settlements, the frame rate plummeted. The planetary generation tech broke, resulting in repeating tile textures that looked objectively worse than a game built 5 years prior. The philosophical disconnect hurt even more. On-foot gameplay felt bolted into the hull of the completely different game. FPS combat was clunky, planet scanning was tedious, and the mission design encouraged players to take an automated Apex taxi rather than fly their carefully engineered ships. The core fantasy of being elite pilot just shattered. and the fallout was massive. The code base was so unstable in March 2022 that CEO announced the cancellation of all console development. Xbox and PlayStation players were exiled to the legacy server, left behind as a PC version limped forward. Trust evaporated. Review bombing became the community's primary form of communication, and the content creators abandoned the game. To outside observers, Elite Dangerous was a sinking ship. Beneath the broken code, however, the development team did something rare in a live service era. But they stopped making promises and selling the hype. They simply put their heads down and went back to work for the next 3 years. And to unify their broken community, they orchestrated the massive in-game war. Following the Odyssey disaster, Frontier didn't rely on a simple patch notes. They introduced an existential threat, realizing the cynical community could only be brought back together by a shared trauma. In late 2022, the second Thargoid War began. This wasn't a static lore event relegated to the text menu. 8 massive alien motherships called Titans violently breached human space and systematically invaded core systems. Stations that players had called home for nearly a decade were suddenly under siege, their interiors burning and services offline. The galaxy map mutated into terrifying a dynamic war zone. For the first time, isolated players had to abandon their routines and mobilize. Combat pilots threw themselves into brutal engagement against Thargoid interceptors. Haulers stripped their ships and shields to maximize cargo space, running frantic evacuation missions to pull refugees out of burning starport. Player groups worked feverishly to decode alien anomalies to unlock the nanite torpedoes necessary to penetrate Titan's thermal vents. This multi-year campaign culminated in December 2024 when tens of thousands of players systematically assaulted and destroyed the final Titan. The sheer scale of the explosion lit up the Sol system. The real victory, however, was mechanical. Thargoid War proved that the background simulation and the Stellar Forge could support massive player-driven goals, and the community actively fought for the galaxy's survival instead of passively observing it. And Frontier realized that if players were willing to bleed to save the human space, they would be desperate for the tools to expand it. This realization birthed the Trailblazers update of February 2025, delivering the system colonization to the space simulation genre. Before the Trailblazers, your impact on the universe was fleeting. You moved to the world built by developers. Today, players can achieve the rank of the system architect. You can fly your ship on the edge of an inhabited bubble, find an untouched solar system generated by the Stellar Forge, and drop the colonization beacon. Doing this triggers massive logistical campaign where megaships arrive on your claim system, requiring millions of tons of refined metals, polymers, and machinery to construct orbital facilities and planetary outposts. The training and mining groups instantly gained profound purpose. Player groups began carving out their own geography, pushing human civilization towards the colonial region. You're physically building an infrastructure of an empire, terraforming the galactic economy, and deciding whether the newly birthed star systems will be an agricultural hub or high-tech military stronghold. While Trailblazers gave the game the macro-level depth, and operations in early 2026 revolutionized the micro-level gameplay. For years, players validly complained about the game's refusal to respect their time. A single mission could require 45 minutes in supercruise just to reach the destination. The operations update attacked this friction point by introducing the megaship interiors. Frontier avoided the standard gravity simulated FPS combat of Odyssey and instead introduced true unforgiving zero-gravity combat. When you board a megaship now, you engage in a visceral zero-gravity warfare. You use magnetic boots to anchor yourself to the hull, walking on the ceiling or the walls. You navigate cavernous cargo holds using directional thrusters. Ballistics travel in a perfect straight lines, and a physical recoil pushes your body backwards in a vacuum, requiring an absolute stabilization. It completely changes the tactical paradigm, with attacks coming from above, below, and every conceivable angle. Crucially, those operations are structured as instant raids for up to 4 players, accessible immediately from the core hubs. You can log in, run a dense 30-minute tactical strike with your friends, and log out. Frontier figured out how to balance the scale of 1-to-1 galaxy with the immediate thrill of a modern combat. They cured the mile-wide and inch-deep problem by offering both infinite breadth and a localized depth. Now, Elite Dangerous has evolved past just being a solitary flight simulator. It has become a grueling and a rewarding player-driven universe that asks you to carve out your own legacy in a dark. If you have been sitting on the sidelines burned by Odyssey launch or intimidated by its learning curve, there's never been a better time to step in the pilot seat. And you don't have to spend a fortune for it because of our channel sponsor, Instant Gaming. While other games charge you
Adult
hundreds of
37, not
dollars
bad.
for the concept chips that will probably, maybe never release, Instant Gaming offers you the keys, actual keys to the fully realize one-to-one Galaxy. Right now you can actually pick up Elite Dangerous Deluxe Edition, which includes both Game and Odyssey expansion for less than $10. Instant Gaming provides you with official CD keys for a massive discount, directly supporting channel while seriously saving a lot of money. Click the link in the description down below, grab the key for yourself, and don't forget to join our giveaway as well. And thanks again to Instant Gaming for supporting this channel. But when we look at the landscape of genre today, the contrast is undeniable. The Star Citizen will continue to sell the dream of the perfect simulation, gated behind the server vibes and alpha builds. No Man's Sky will continue being a vibrant, amazing sandbox where the landing will require only pressing a single button. While Elite Dangerous is completely unique, it is uncompromising and scientifically rigorous. It still demands you to learn how to fly, manage your power distribution, and dock without destroying your hull. The difference is that in 2026, this journey has finally the destination worth reaching. You are an architect. You are a commander in a zero-G war zone. You are a pioneer on a bleeding edge of an Orion spur. Milky Way has become a canvas waiting for your mark, rather than a backdrop outside your window. And for the first time in 12 years, the simulation that we were promised is real. And if you really want to join the Elite Dangerous and get the absolute maximum out of it, not just game-wise, but
I'm about to lose my mind. This is going to be my third time recording this. First time, my camera shut off because apparently the battery decided to die. It was fully charged, decided to die on me. Okay, great. That was last night. This morning, I was actually glad that the whole delay happened because I actually got more context to a lot of things happening with this story. The second time I recorded it, it should have been perfect. But guess what? My audio issues decided to be a little... apparently, my mic decided to blow out in the last recording. So this is take 3, and I really hope this isn't a failure because I do not know how much more of this I can take. We all know what the Forza Horizon series is, right? It's a really fun racing game that's more arcadey than traditional realistic racing, and it's made by Playground Games, now owned by Xbox since 2018. Playground Games is a British developer that was specifically known for Forza Horizon, but is now actually creating the new Fable game. Well, some people from the Forza Horizon dev team broke off to create a new company called Maverick Games. This studio was founded in 2022, but the news didn't actually break until January 10th, 2023. Maverick Games was reported to be made up of 62 total employees early on, many of which worked on the Forza Horizon series, including Mike Brown, Maverick Games' studio head and creative director, who was the former creative director on Forza Horizon 5, Tom Butcher, who is the executive producer of Maverick Games, who was a producer on Forza Horizon 2 to 5, as well as F1 race stars with Codemasters, Matt Craven as the chief technology officer, who was a programmer with 12 years of experience at Playground and 10 years with Codemasters, Gareth Harwood as the content director, who has 10 years of experience as a technical artist with Playground and 3 years with Freestyle Games, Fraser Strachan, audio director, who was the audio designer for Forza Horizon 2 to 5, and art director Ben Penrose from Shark Mob London with 9 years of experience at Playground Games. Actually, real quick, I did want to point out that they brought on Jamie Britton, the co-creator of the original British TV show Skins, to be the lead writer on the game. This is pretty important, and I'll tell you why in a bit. And speaking about the new studio, Brown told Forbes, "Our goal is for Maverick Games to be a studio people will love. For players, we're already at work on an exciting, ultra-high quality title, and for developers, we're building a home where everyone is encouraged to take risks, be curious, be creative, be innovative, be themselves, and above all, be a Maverick." So what does the writer of Skins have to do with Maverick Games' goal? Well, it was to create a narrative-led open-world driving game. And this time, the game would be available on all platforms, unlike Forza Horizon, including PlayStation. Brown's goal with this new racing game was to focus more on the characters and story. In a press release, Brown stated, "Lots of great driving games have amazing gameplay, amazing content. But to cross that bridge, to become a game that people genuinely love, then there needs to be that human connection where you're actually rooting for these characters, falling in love with these characters. That, I think, is a place where our game will be able to really differentiate itself from other titles in this genre." Hence, bringing on that writer. The next few years were fairly quiet for the studio. Then, on May 30th, 2024, Maverick Games announced their new publishing agreement with Amazon Games via their Maverick Games podcast. When the news broke about this new project being backed by Amazon, fans were actually pretty excited because this was the most news that had dropped about this mysterious new game since the announcement back in 2023. Then the studio went quiet again, aside from releasing episodes on their podcast and a few videos on their YouTube page. That brings us to present time in 2026. On February 25th, Amazon released a statement to the game business that it was releasing Maverick Games from their publishing agreement with Amazon Game Studios. This statement actually covered more than just Amazon's release of Maverick Games. For context, Amazon has been scaling back its games division recently. Last year in December 2025, Ubisoft announced that it obtained the rights for the upcoming MOBA March of Giants from Amazon Games Montreal. In this deal, Ubisoft also inherited the entire development team from Amazon. Then, in January of this year, Christoph Hartmann, Amazon Game Studios boss, exited the company. This news came hand in hand with Amazon announcing a round of layoffs, which included 16,000 roles. Beth Galletti, the company's SVP of People Experience and Technology, stated that this was done to reduce layers, increase ownership, and remove bureaucracy. Let's not forget that back in October last year, Amazon had laid off 14,000 people. By the way, do you remember that one MMO called New World? You know, the one really successful game that Amazon created that players actually really loved and made a giant community with, and the dev team had just pushed out Season 10 last November? Yeah, that one. Well, Amazon shut that down January 15th this year, but players who bought the game can still play until January 31st, 2027, when all servers will be taken down. Amazon also closed Glowmade, developer of King of Meat, and stated that the game servers would close April 9th, 2026. Amazon hammered home their new goal of focusing on the relaunch of Luna, their cloud gaming service, and the development of Tomb Raider in partnership with Crystal Dynamics. In that statement Amazon made about these studio closures and Maverick Games' independence, it stated, "We have tremendous respect for the Maverick Games team and the compelling narrative-led driving experience they're creating. This decision allows Maverick Games the flexibility to find a publishing partner whose strategic priorities are better aligned with bringing their game to market. We're proud of what we accomplished together during our partnership and wish them every success in the future." The official Maverick Games account on Twitter posted, "You may have seen the news today. We're no longer working with Amazon Game Studios. We're grateful to Amazon Games for their partnership and collaboration. Development of our debut title continues to progress as strongly as planned. We're in active dialogue with partners who share our long-term ambition for the IP and look forward to sharing more later this year." Brown came out with his own statement after the news broke and quote-tweeted the VGC post by saying, "A few people sharing condolences about this, please do not. We are as good as we've ever been and are getting ready to share the game with you later in the year. We will aim to shoot a podcast to discuss it a bit more tomorrow." Guess what? That was a few days ago. So we actually have the update. Thank God my recording broke, and the podcast episode dropped today, and we got a little bit more context to the whole situation. In the Maverick Games podcast episode 15, the devs spoke on how they found out about the separation from Amazon in December last year, and how they originally wanted to drop the news alongside some game asset reveals. Turns out, Maverick Games had been given the paperwork the last working day before Christmas. Harinder Sangha, Chief Operating Officer and co-founder of Maverick Games, spoke in the podcast episode about how they were fairly happy with the outcome since their IP was what really mattered to them and never wanted that to be up for sale. So the fact that Maverick Games was coming out of the deal with full ownership of their IP was good enough news for them. Brown said, "On the day that I found out, I was disappointed and upset for approximately 40 seconds before thinking, probably actually pretty good for us." Executive producer Tom Butcher added that it was nice to just focus on creating the game instead of needing to get approval on a vision or idea for development. It's a game that you no longer have to ask people to believe in, you can kind of just show them it.
So we must go
Maverick
the
Games did
areas where
confirm
the
that there
light
was
bloom
an
is
existing
most
demo for their
active.
game that was created for pitching it to various people. And this demo was made in time for
A
Gamescom
large
2
attack
years ago.
only causes the
Brown
light bloom
confirmed
to
that the
spread.
project is
A
in
few
post-production,
striking
just
the most
entering it,
dangerous.
essentially
That
meaning
is
that
best.
they're just ensuring the game is content complete and polished. A trailer is being created currently, and Brown added that the news announcing the end of Amazon Games and Maverick Games looked bad initially, and that the team had wanted to drop something post-announcement to assure the public that things were still going well. Apparently, confirmed by Butcher, Brown threatens daily to release the trailer early. It was all playfully said, of course. Also, one interesting note that I got from the podcast episode. The developer spoke on how if you're making a game like theirs and you have a lot of licensed cars, you're using other people's IP. So the owner of each car manufacturer has to send their approval to be used in whatever context you have. Unsurprisingly, this process can take a lot of time. Maverick Games really does seem to be doing well, though. The studio won the GamesIndustry.biz Best Places to Work award in 2023, 2024, and 2025. Actually, funny enough, Playground Games presented that category at the awards last year. There are also a few job listings available on their website, including a position for a technical animator, vehicle handling designer, and speculative applications. It does seem like Maverick Games will be releasing a trailer fairly soon this year, so we'll have to keep an eye on the next updates, hopefully coming soon. Are you excited to see what they'll show us? How do you feel about Amazon slowly shuttering their game studios? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Invading our gardens has a price, and the light bloom will make sure you pay it.
So this is where Ruia has hidden himself.
Prologue. Dave Chappelle embarrasses himself. When I ended my last video about the Riyadh Comedy Festival by talking about Dave Chappelle, I wasn't expecting to talk about him much, if at all, in the second video. What I didn't account for was that Dave would stage another one of his glorified whining sessions disguised as a Netflix special. In some ways, this would turn out to be a boon, because during this special, Dave would address the controversy. The way he did it was actually so bad that it changed my perspective on the way other comedians discussed in this video handled the controversy.
I've been getting a lot of grief, again, because I did a comedy festival in Saudi Arabia.
I'll give Dave some credit here, as this is a slightly more clever approach to calling his critics racist than we've seen from others.
And you hear those cheers? That's black people. America's whites, they're furious.
But it's ultimately little more than a deflection, which is the main problem with Dave's attempt to address the issue. He never really defends performing in Saudi Arabia. More so, he just provides excuses or whataboutisms. Of course, not before repeatedly stating how not guilty he feels about doing the Saudi gig.
I've never not felt guilty about something. Like I've never felt, I don't feel guilty at all.
This is how normal people who aren't guilty think and behave. They constantly tell themselves and others how not guilty they feel about a decision. This is where it goes from awkward and unconvincing to pretty weird. For some reason, Dave takes aim at Bill Maher of all people.
And Bill Maher, the famous comedian, I've known Bill since I was like 18, 19 years old, and I've never said this publicly, but that guy.
This is funny because Bill was one of the more vocally supportive voices of the festival in the comedy world, which I'm generously including Maher in.
I have mixed feelings about this, but I basically think it's a great idea to go anywhere like that. Yeah. I still think the people who are doing it are brave, and it's apparently the ones over there are enjoying it.
Bill just challenged Dave's statement about it being easier to speak in Saudi Arabia than in America.
Dave Chappelle said that it was in the press today saying that you can speak more freely over here than in America.
Yeah, I don't know if that's true.
Oh, it's not true.
To which Dave gave an inarticulate and racially charged response.
I'm so f***ing tired of this little smug ass commentary.
Dave would then try to claim that his critics accused him of betraying his principles by performing in a place that had murdered a journalist, then countered by saying that Israel had killed 240 journalists in the last 3 months.
They said, well, Saudi Arabia killed a journalist, and Israel's killed 240 journalists. So I didn't know y'all was still counting.
And you know, credit to Dave again. That's a really good reason not to perform in Israel. However, that's not what we're talking about. It doesn't in any way, shape, or form justify performing in Saudi Arabia. You can't just say, one country did horrible things, so it's okay for me to perform in another country that did horrible things. It literally can only work as an argument if the person criticizing you has also performed at the behest of an equally bad regime. Even then, you're just pointing out that you're both bad people. It's kind of like Bill Clinton telling Trump to release the unredacted Epstein files because he knows they're both implicated. Dave is just being disingenuous here. He's twisting the discourse into one about Israel because he has no defense for performing in Saudi Arabia. More importantly, he doesn't actually care about those journalists, just like he doesn't care about the people who have been killed by Saudi Arabia, or even his fellow comedians who have been jailed by the Saudi regime. He doesn't care. It's just a smokescreen for the real reason he performed in Saudi Arabia, his weird, long-standing grievance against the trans community.
Ooh, 198 trinket. Nice.
Went over very well in Saudi Arabia.
Dave, of course, tries to frame this in light of almost being canceled due to transgender jokes.
Don't forget what I just went through. 2 years ago, I almost got canceled right here in the United States for transgender jokes.
But almost being canceled is doing a lot of heavy lifting here. It's tough to claim you are anything remotely close to being canceled when you're getting paid tens of millions of dollars to treat the world's biggest streaming service like your own personal blog, where you cry about all of the people who have hurt your feelings. But it's just one of several deflections Dave uses during this rant, such as claiming that he'll take money from the Saudis just so he can say no over here.
But I'll take money from Saudi Arabia any day, just so I can say no over here.
And that it feels good to be free.
It feels good to be free.
If it feels so good to be free, why did you skedaddle back to America so quickly, Dave? What Dave wants isn't really to be free, because he already was, long before he compromised his integrity by taking the Saudi money. What Dave really wants is to be free from criticism. He wants a safe space where he can complain about the people he hates while other people can't complain about him. And he was more than happy to perform at the behest of a brutal dictatorship to get that safe space. In doing so, he totally abandoned any pretense of free speech. I think that's why Bill Maher's comment pissed Dave off so much, despite how innocuous it was. It shattered the illusion of freedom that Dave had created in his mind as a justification for betraying his principles. He knows Bill was right, that he couldn't do his bid on Muhammad, as Maher put it.
Do your hunk on Muhammad, Dave.
Yeah.
Whether it was for the money or just to deliver the umpteenth rant about a particular group of people, Dave sold out his principles. He knows he sacrificed his freedoms, and it's causing the cognitive dissonance on display in his latest special. But he's not alone. The rest of the comics I'll be discussing have done worse in my opinion. Chapter 9, Whitney Cummings. Whitney is one of the more curious cases from this controversial event because she had two wildly different reactions to the backlash. The first came as part of an appearance on an episode of We Might Be Drunk that seems to have been recorded long before she did the festival. I say this because Sam mentioned during the episode that they'd be performing in Saudi Arabia in a couple of weeks, and Whitney confirmed that she would be too.
Anyway, we'll be in Saudi Arabia in a couple weeks.
As will I.
Mark Norman then asked Whitney if she had been getting any shit for agreeing to the gig, but Cummings made herself out to be completely unbothered by the online backlash.
Are you getting shit?
I don't care. No, what?
Oh, I guess you're not looking. Yeah, it's all bots.
Yeah, I don't care. Like, I don't...
In a bit of foreshadowing, she also questioned if Mark and Sam were getting more backlash than she was because they engaged with it.
What's your butt, kitty?
You guys get more of this because you respond to it?
Kitty, get your butt off my
Or
table.
like talk about how it annoys you.
Yeah, maybe, because then they're like, we're getting to him.
More amusingly, Whitney would make the argument, while rambling about dead internet theory, that it was actually good for comedians to receive negative feedback.
I think it might be good for us. Like some negative feedback might be okay.
Yeah,
I haven't like drawn this line of thinking out. I might pivot on it, but like.
Well, Whitney, I guess the lesson here is be careful what you wish for. Part of the reason Whitney's decision to be involved in the Riyadh Comedy Festival was so controversial to some people is that she's a comedian who has discussed topics like sexual harassment and the Me Too movement in the past. So to go over to a country where women do not have equal rights, an issue she was aware of and even joked about beforehand, seems incredibly hypocritical.
I think if you're a woman working in Saudi Arabia, it's so deeply unfair that I will be forced to work when I'm there. And read things and read a schedule.
Good point. You won't have to drive.
Yeah, I was going to say, at least they'll have a driver for me. Yeah.
In a strange turn of events, this point was actually articulated by the ephemophilic nightmare demon known by some as Chris D'Elia. Chris argued that it was especially hypocritical for comedians who had taken pro-women's rights stances to then perform in a country where women are second-class citizens. Of course, Chris was probably just doing this because Cummings betrayed him during his scandal a few years ago, or maybe because he was just jealous that he didn't get to go to a country with no age of consent. Either way, his comments seemed to really get under Whitney's skin. During a now-deleted segment from the October 12th episode of her Good For You podcast, Whitney addressed her critics and D'Elia specifically. Weirdly, Cummings' only response to D'Elia's criticism was to call him a nepo baby with a trust fund who was calling other comedians sellouts for making money.
People are like, you sell out? I love when a nepo baby tells comics who grew up poor that they're sellouts. People whose dads have points on huge television shows are like, I have a backup plan and trust fund. You're a sellout for making money.
A better argument would have been to recite the 9 litanies of Ilthagor that would banish Chris back to the Netherverse. Failing that, she could have said that Chris probably shouldn't be opening his mouth on issues of ethics and morality given his many scandals.
I will block the route
But the problem is that regardless of who voiced the criticism, it's still right, and Whitney didn't have any counter to it. You can see this plainly in her other floundering responses to the backlash, starting with mocking her detractors for thinking they figured everything out.
I can see the thing now. Whitney Cummings addresses the festival. You know what? I don't think I need to address it. You guys have it all figured out. I think you guys got it.
Yeah.
I did write a chapter in my book about when I went to Dubai. You guys would know how to pronounce it. You tell me, how do you pronounce it? I'm so ignorant, I don't know.
Then she claims that they're being racist for assuming that the Saudi government and the Saudi citizens have the same views.
I guess I'm this weirdo. I don't operate under, the idea that every government and their people are the same. But
I don't either.
Like, you think that the people of Saudi Arabia and the Saudi government all share. Okay, so you also believe that the Chinese government and the Chinese people are exactly the same. It's just racism. I think it took me a second, because when people are going like, oh, you're doing something unethical, I'm like, oh, these must be ethical people, let me listen. And then you're like, oh no, you're just racist.
As we know by now, this argument is completely flawed because the Riyadh Comedy Festival was not created by the people of Saudi Arabia. It was created and funded directly by the Saudi government through the Sovereign Wealth Fund, which is a point Whitney does seem to understand, as later in the podcast she brings up the fact that the Saudis have a stake in Live Nation as well as WME.
When you get a sec, Google Saudi Arabia Live Nation, so you can be informed on the fact that anyone who has worked with Live Nation, every stand-up comic, has taken Saudi money. Google that, just so that you know what you're talking about.
Or bought a ticket through Live Nation.
Or bought a ticket through Live Nation, went to a Live Nation event. All the actors who were represented by William Morris Agency, which is all of them, if you want to send them notes too.
To me, this is an even worse argument than claiming that your detractors are racist, because it's not just fundamentally flawed, it's incoherently stupid and undercuts her other arguments.
Behold
what she's
my
saying
power!
here is essentially the comedy equivalent of the "yet you participate in society" meme. What Whitney was attempting to do here was make the case that because we're all complicit in exploitation to some degree, no one has the ethical grounds to criticize her. However, it only takes a minute of critical thinking to see that this ridiculous purity test would make it impossible to criticize anyone because we're all part of a system that exploits people. There is a huge difference between taking money from Live Nation or buying a ticket from them and taking a check directly from the fucking Saudi government. It's a difference so obvious that I shouldn't even have to explain it. It's also particularly hypocritical of someone like Whitney to make this kind of argument. We don't even have to go that far back to find an example of her condemning others for expressing themselves in a way that she didn't approve of. Back in September, she said of the people celebrating Charlie Kirk's death, quote, "If you are happy someone was publicly executed because they don't share your beliefs, congrats, you're the Taliban." So just to make Whitney's perspective clear, celebrating someone's public execution is bad, but taking money from people who do public executions is totally fine.
You're a sellout for making money.
Remember the clause.
That's the point people like Whitney want to distract you from. They chose to actively participate in the exploitation, or at the very least, whitewash reputations of the ones who do. They want to present their decision to take this gig as if they were just another schmuck like you.
Ooh, another trinket.
To make ends meet. Because if you are someone who willingly took money from a government that oppresses women, how can you be taken seriously the next time you advocate for women's rights or speak out against sexual harassment?
Called for everyone.
You've already shown us that your stance on those issues is negotiable. Since Whitney had this blow up on her podcast and then had it removed, she's made more comments regarding the backlash she received. On the October 19th episode of Good For You, Cummings spent the opening few minutes kind of addressing the backlash she got.
That thing looks so cool.
Critics. Mainly, Whitney tried to cover her ass by saying that she wasn't attacking her fans.
Because last week, I said what I said, and I said, and people were like, "Yeah, how dare you say we're racist?" I'm like, I didn't call you racist. Who are you?
Then she made the case that we don't know what they were seeing about her and vice versa.
I'm talking about the messages I read. I don't think you were one of them. But did you see the message? If you saw the messages I read, you would have, I think, said the same thing. I need to see what you saw about me. Because honestly, if I look at your, the TikTok videos you've seen about, I might be like, oh, you are right to think that about me. None of these are true, but like...
Which is technically true, but feels like a pretty massive cop-out given the way in which she lashed out at her critics. She also made the point that whatever side the viewer was on, she was on their side.
Whatever it is, I'm on your side. If you are mad at me, I'm on your side. If you're not mad at me, I'm on everyone's side.
This led her into some Joe Rogan-style diatribe about how the internet should be viewed as a drug like sugar or alcohol because of the way it affects people's mood and perception.
We're going why is that person so angry on the internet? Well, they probably only got fed things to make them angry. Oh, got it. Like, we have to start looking at certain social media diets as, like, sugar or alcohol or something, It's like, why is he freaking out? Well, he's had 4 drinks.
That said, her point is somewhat hard to follow because
dangerous.
It's a rambling,
we must
manic
destroy
mess where
it
Whitney is
before they
bouncing
finish
around and
infusing
stimming
it.
with her hair nonstop. Since then, she hasn't mentioned the controversy much as far as I can tell, with the exception of an offhand comment when she placed the blame for needing to do the gig on her late mother's medical expenses.
I pay for all of her care, 10 years, out of pocket, which is why I'll see you soon, Casino Pachanga, 2 shows. Literally blame my mom for why I performed in Saudi Arabia. If you're mad about that, I will give you the address of her grave, if you would like to give a Yelp review.
Personally, I feel the fact that Whitney offered a kind of apology or attempt to reconcile her fan base softens her reaction to some degree. It doesn't exonerate her because at the end of the day, she didn't acknowledge the reason people were mad at her for performing in Saudi Arabia. She only took some accountability for freaking out at her suspiciously large YouTube audience. It doesn't really make up for taking the gig or for the way she reacted to the criticism, but it was something. You can't say the same for the next 2 people. Chapter 10. Andrew Schultz. Of all the people involved in the Riyadh Comedy Festival, Schultz stands out to me as one of the most interesting. He has been more vocal and open about his willingness to take part in the festival than almost anyone else. He seems to have no regrets and does little to justify his involvement. He wasn't over the top with it like Tim Dillon, but he also hasn't shied away from talking about Saudi Arabia either. Additionally, unlike some other comedians like Louis C.K. or Bill Burr, this wasn't Andrew's first time performing in the Middle East after years of reluctance to take such a gig. So it can't be claimed that he just suddenly decided to compromise his integrity for this one show. On a surface level, it's kind of convincing. With that in mind, when you examine his message more closely, there is a subtle, insidious quality underlying what he's saying. Schultz's main way of addressing the controversy has been to call his critics racist.
I think a lot of people in the West, they just have this complete, it's pretty kind of racist if you ask me. Basically, all the people being critical, they're not saying it, but they are saying, you can perform in white people countries.
Do you have fans there? Go perform for them.
Yep.
No fans around the world are beneath you performing for them for things out of their control.
A similar point was also made by Schultz's chortling podcast homunculus, Akash Singh, who got even more specific in terms of who they were talking about, mentioning Mark Maron as well as unnamed Brooklyn comedians.
Look at that audience of yours. I bet I can count the minorities on one hand. Yeah, they don't know you exist. It's not because you're a problem. It's not because you speak truth to power. It's because you speak truth to upper middle class white people and 10 minorities who want to fuck upper middle class white people.
Just pat yourselves on the back. That's it.
Go to a Mark Maron show. Count the minorities.
Exactly.
I doubt you get to the second hand.
Yeah, where are those minorities he cares so much about?
While they're being intentionally vague here, it also seems fairly obvious to me that they're talking about Gianmarco Ceresi, who has been something of a thorn in the side of Riyadh comedians.
That's the thing, when these fucking comics are like trying to be self-aware when they're shitting on us. They're like, just for the record, we didn't get an invite to the Riyadh.
We know you didn't. You can't perform outside of Brooklyn.
Exactly. Like,
you do musical theater crowd work.
Yeah.
I find it strange that they wouldn't just mention him or whichever comedians they're complaining about by name, given that in the same podcast, Schultz rants about other comedians being weasels and rats for vaguely turning on the Austin comedy scene.
Like, I've been seeing a lot of comedians, like, trying to, like, separate themselves from Austin lately. Have you seen this? And it's like, and now I see these comics,
The
like,
is
vocally
persistent.
talking
We
shit. That they
too
would
must
talk
be.
all this shit, by the way, behind closed doors, because it's what comics do, but, like, real, like, rat weasel shit.
Schultz and Singh would make similar points, again, during an episode of the Flagrant podcast from November 20th featuring Mo Amer, who also performed in Riyadh.
Listen, Mo is on here. Obviously, we're talking reckless. You know what I mean? Yeah. Listen, we're the only people in America right now that believe that Muslims should hear jokes. How did you feel about when
So disgusting, bro. So wildly appalling. First of all, like, even the comedians that went there talking about, hey, they liked it. They fucking laughed.
Like, they're shocked that people like it.
Now, I'll grant that Mo's perspective on this topic might be different than most, given that he is a Muslim and a Palestinian American.
And then, first of all, for me, from my perspective, bro, I'm a Palestinian roaming around in these streets. Like, no matter where I go, I'm dealing with something.
We live in a time where countries are making it illegal to show support for Palestine, where basic criticisms like Israel shouldn't blow up so many kids is enough to get you labeled an anti-Semite. So I can understand why someone in Mo's position with his perspective might perceive the backlash differently than I would.
And also, like, me going to that region, going to Saudi Arabia, going to Riyadh itself, how many Palestinians that reached out to me after the show that they brought their kids, man, I'm so, like, it makes me emotional, bro.
Yeah.
And I'm a Muslim. Yeah. My brother's buried there down the street. You couldn't stop me from going there and performing with my own people.
I have to ask the question. Are Schultz, Singh, and Amer really presenting the criticism honestly? I don't think they are.
The funny thing is when you see people who like identify as very progressive, and it's like their expectations of people are so low that it doesn't match up with the progressive ideals. Like, I couldn't believe
it. I just can't believe you would just go and perform for these animals. Let's just say it.
I haven't seen anyone suggesting that the people of Saudi Arabia don't deserve comedy. It's been said many times by critics of the festival that it would be perfectly fine if the comedians were performing at a private comedy club or an event hosted by ordinary Saudi citizens. The issue is that it was paid for by the Saudi government. Even Schultz knows this and jokes that it helped his fans get a discount.
What you're saying is you're taking money from the government.
Good, my fans get a discount.
There you go.
You're welcome.
Like a lot of Andrew's defenses, it's not really meant to withstand any scrutiny. It's more of a deflection, and it works on people who won't press him on it, like his laugh track of cronies or simpletons like Joe Rogan. But I digest. Schultz's accusations of racism towards his critics serves another function. It allows him to pretend that he's better than other comics because he thinks brown people deserve comedy and he's willing to perform wherever he has fans.
No fans around the world are beneath you performing for them for things out of their control. But, like, maybe just the white countries. Because that's what they're all saying, right? They're like, how dare you perform in non-white countries? Like, they like humor out there. This is the thing. A lot of people in the West, they just have this complete... It's pretty kind of racist, if you ask me. They just have this complete bastardized view of people in the Middle East, right? Yes, here. But my point is, like, these people are not beneath you performing for them. That's what I didn't like with the whole rhetoric.
Now, I shouldn't have to explain to you how shallow that excuse is. Of course he performs where he has fans, but it's not as if he's doing it out of the kindness of his heart. Again, he didn't go to Saudi Arabia to perform at a small club for a few dozen flagrant fans. He went over there because he was financially compensated, specifically by the government that oppresses his own fans.
Because what they're saying is you're taking money from the government.
Good, my fans get a discount.
But don't let those facts get in the way of your white savior complex, Andrew. Beyond these two core themes, Andrew has put forward a number of other minor arguments, excuses, deflections, and whataboutisms that, while not particularly robust individually, act together to make Schultz's decision seem less morally reprehensible. The first is to claim that flagrant fans weren't upset because the podcast was never the virtue signaling type.
Well, that's the reason why we don't have any pushback, barely any pushback, is because we've never been the virtue signaling type. We've never been the virtue signaling motherfuckers.
No.
We're assholes through and through. No. We're brilliant idiots through and through, so...
Which is true, but it's such a fucking absurd thing to just say. Hey, we may be disingenuous frauds, but we'll also never disappoint you because we set the bar so low. This argument is also interesting when contrasted with Schultz's other claim that much of the backlash they received came because they had Donald Trump on their podcast.
Like, when we had politicians on the pod,
Hi, kitty.
we thrust ourselves into the political discourse. Once you have a politician on your platform, you enter yourself into the political mudslinging discourse.
Essentially, he tries to make the case that people who already hated the podcast for political reasons saw the festival as an opportunity to attack them.
You are seen by the people that are your opposition as evil, and any chance they get to show that you're a hypocrite or show that you're...
Okay, guys, I'm going to stop here. Sorry, my cat bumped my camera. I am tired. I'm brain dead, and I want to finish the last level, but I think I need to sleep first. So I'm gonna sleep for however long I can sleep. I love you guys. Thank you so much for your time. I'll be back here sometime this midday or afternoon, somewhere around there. And my cat and I are gonna go to bed. I love you guys. I've been recording for 13 hours and 40 minutes. It's been 14 hours usual day. I'm going to stop recording here. I'll be back tomorrow to cap out my MIDNITE character and begin some heroic runs, to do some more challenging healing and stuff, and get up, and it will be fun. And play some hardcore and level a priest and all that stuff. So I will be back. Love you guys. I will see you later today. Gonna go to bed. Thank you for watching Skycatlive. If you're watching this late at night, I don't know if you are, but I wouldn't. My schedule's all fucked up. But I love you guys. Thank you so much for your time. And I'm gonna stop this recording with a reminder that I have thousands of videos on my YouTube channel. You should come check me out. And that's reflected here, or the PayPal link. And thank you so much for your support. This entire session was recorded in its 13-hour and 41-minute entirety, and that will be placed on my channel as I do every day. And these videos can be seen reflected here. So I will be publishing the WoW midnight launch day, and I'll see you guys in a bit.